It's wonderful to have you here. There is a moment, late at night, when the room has gone dark and only one small rectangle of light is still glowing. Your eyes are open. The world is quiet. And somewhere behind those eyes, a clock older than language is reading that light, deciding what time it believes it is. That is where tonight begins. Close your eyes and breathe deeply now. The light that shaped your days carries a signal your body has always known. Welcome to Sleepy Science Facts, and now we begin. There is a small population of cells at the back of your eye that were never meant for seeing. For more than a century, scientists believed the retina held only two kinds of light detectors: the rods and the cones, the cells that build the images you recognize as the world. Then, in the early 2000s, researchers found a third type, wired not to the part of the brain that creates pictures, but to the part that keeps time. These cells barely contribute to vision at all. What they do instead is quieter and stranger. They measure light itself, and they report it to a clock. The question that opens tonight begins here, with a cell that does not care what you see, only how bright it is. These cells are called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, a long name for a simple job. The word intrinsically matters. Most cells in your eye need rods and cones to tell them light has arrived. These do not. They carry their own light-sensitive pigment, so they can respond to brightness entirely on their own. They make up only a tiny fraction of the cells in your retina, far less than 1 in 100. Yet their influence on your body reaches far beyond the eye. They are the part of you that knows whether it is day or night, even when the rest of you has stopped paying attention. The pigment inside these cells is called melanopsin. It is what makes them sensitive to light without any help. Melanopsin responds most strongly to a particular slice of the spectrum, the short wavelengths we perceive as blue, with a peak sensitivity near 480 nanometers. This is the detail that gave rise to the popular story, the one about blue light and screens and ruined sleep. But the story, as it is usually told, leaves out almost everything that matters. Melanopsin is not a switch that blue light flips on. It is one piece of a system that weighs color, brightness, duration, and timing all at once. Tonight, we will follow that system inward, past the simple version, toward what is actually happening. When melanopsin absorbs light, it changes shape. This is the first event, the molecular beginning of everything that follows. A single particle of light strikes the pigment, and the pigment bends. And that bending opens a channel that lets charged particles flow into the cell. The flow is small, but it is enough to change the electrical state of the cell, enough to start a signal traveling, from a single photon to a message about the time of day. The chain is shorter than you might expect. Your sense of when it is happens at the scale of molecules. In cells you will never feel, responding to light you may not even notice. These signals do not travel toward the visual cortex, where seeing happens. They travel along a separate pathway, a bundle of fibers with a name that describes exactly where it goes: the retinohypothalamic tract, from the retina to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a small region deep in the brain, no larger than an almond. and it governs some of the most fundamental rhythms of being alive. Hunger, temperature, the cycle of sleep and waking. The light your eye measures is delivered directly to this control center. There is no detour through thought. The message arrives below the level of awareness, where it has always been meant to go. The specific destination within the hypothalamus is a cluster of cells called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is tiny, only about 20,000 neurons, sitting just above the point where the optic nerves cross. This cluster is the master clock of the human body. Inside each of its cells, a set of genes turns on and off in a loop that takes close to 24 hours to complete. Left in total darkness, that loop keeps running on its own, steady and self-sustaining. But it is not quite 24 hours. It drifts. And that drift is the reason light matters so much. Each day, the light your eyes report nudges the clock back into alignment with the turning of the Earth. The word suprachiasmatic simply means above the crossing, a description of its location above the optic chiasm, where the nerves from both eyes meet and exchange. The placement is not an accident. The master clock sits as close as it possibly can to the incoming stream of light information, like a station built directly beside the tracks. Evolution placed your timekeeper at the doorway of light, because light is the most reliable signal the planet offers. The sun rises and sets with a regularity nothing else can match. A body that could read that signal could anticipate the world. And a body that could anticipate the world had an advantage worth keeping. The clock inside the suprachiasmatic nucleus does not work alone. It sends instructions outward, and one of its most significant messages travels to a small gland near the center of the brain, the pineal gland. The pineal gland produces melatonin, the hormone most people associate with sleep. But melatonin is less a sleeping pill than a messenger announcing darkness. When the master clock detects that night has come, it releases the brake on the pineal gland, and melatonin begins to rise. It is the body's way of telling every organ, quietly and chemically, that the dark part of the cycle has arrived. Sleep is not commanded. It is invited. Light suppresses melatonin. This is the single fact at the heart of the popular blue light story. And it is true. When the photosensitive cells in your eye detect light at the wrong time of night, they signal the master clock. And the master clock signals the pineal gland to slow its release of melatonin. The rising tide of the hormone is held back. The body's announcement of darkness is delayed. But notice what this means. The screen does not poison you. It does not damage the eye in the way the word myth might suggest. It speaks to your clock in the clock's own language. And the clock, faithfully, listens. Something has already shifted in these first 10 facts. Not in the science, but in the frame. The story we are usually told treats blue light as a kind of toxin, something that harms us through screens. But what we have found is not harm. It is communication. The eye is built to measure light and report it to a clock. And the clock responds exactly as it was designed to. The real question is not whether screens emit a dangerous color. It is why a signal so useful by day becomes a problem by night. And what, precisely, that signal is doing to the timing system underneath. Color is only one of the things your light-measuring cells care about, and not the most significant one. Intensity matters more. A dim screen held close and a bright room overhead can carry very different amounts of light to the eye, regardless of their color. The melanopsin system responds to the total quantity of short wavelength light reaching it, integrated over time. This is why the simple advice to avoid blue light can mislead. A warm, amber screen that is still very bright may suppress melatonin more than a cooler screen that is genuinely dim. The clock is counting photons, not admiring hues. Duration matters as much as brightness. A brief flash of light has a smaller effect on the clock than a steady glow that lasts an hour. The photosensitive cells in the retina respond slowly and hold their response, summing light over many minutes rather than reacting instant by instant. This is part of why these cells are so different from the ones that build vision. Rods and cones are sprinters, reacting and resetting in fractions of a second so they can track a moving world. The melanopsin cells are something more like patient witnesses. They are not watching the scene. They are measuring the season of the day. Timing may matter most of all. The same amount of light has wildly different effects depending on when in the cycle it arrives. Light in the early morning tends to advance the clock, nudging it earlier, helping you wake. Light in the late evening tends to delay it, pushing your sense of night later into the small hours. This is the reason a screen at midnight is not the same as a screen at noon. At noon, the light reinforces a clock that is already set to day. At midnight, it argues with a clock that is trying to declare night. And the clock, hearing light, hesitates. The popular fear focuses on the eye, but the eye is only the messenger. The screen does not burn or scar the retina under normal use. Decades of research have found no evidence that ordinary screen brightness damages the photosensitive cells themselves. The word myth points exactly here, at the gap between a fear of physical harm and what the evidence actually shows. What the screen does is subtler and harder to see. It feeds the clock a signal that says day at an hour the body had reserved for night. The disruption is not to the tissue. It is to the timing. And timing, in a body built on rhythms, is the thing that quietly governs almost everything else. Consider how strange it is that a hormone announcing darkness can be held back by a rectangle of glass smaller than a book. The melatonin in your blood does not know what a phone is. It only knows the state of the master clock. And the master clock only knows the light its messengers report. In this sense, the screen is a kind of false dawn, a small artificial sun held inches from the face, telling a timekeeping system older than agriculture that the night has not yet come. The body believes it. It has no reason not to. Light has never lied to it before. The melanopsin cells also shape your pupils. When bright light enters the eye, the pupil narrows, and these photosensitive cells play a central role in driving that response, especially its sustained part. This is why your pupils stay smaller in continuous bright light rather than springing back open. The same cells that report time to your clock also adjust the aperture of your eye. Two jobs from one quiet population of cells. It is a reminder that the eye is not a single instrument, but many, layered together. some watching the world and some watching only the light that bathes it. Blindness does not always erase this light sense. There are people who have lost all conscious vision, who cannot see shapes or movement or faces, yet whose body clocks still respond to light. In some cases, the rods and cones are gone, but the melanopsin cells survive, and they continue to report brightness to the hypothalamus. These individuals cannot see the morning, but their bodies still know it has arrived. It is one of the clearest demonstrations that the timekeeping pathway is separate from sight, a system running in parallel, beneath the images, keeping its own steady account of day and night. The clock in your brain is not the only clock in your body. Nearly every tissue, the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the heart, carries its own molecular timekeeper, the same loop of genes turning on and off across the day. These are called peripheral clocks. On their own, they would drift apart, each keeping slightly different time. The master clock in the hypothalamus is what holds them together, sending out hormonal and neural signals that keep the whole orchestra in tune. Light enters at the top of this system, through the eye, and its influence ripples downward into organs that never see the sun. Because of this layered structure, a disruption at the top can spread far below. When evening light delays the master clock, it does not only delay sleep, it can shift the timing of hormone release, of body temperature, of the rhythms that govern hunger and digestion. The screen at night is not merely keeping you awake. It is sending a small timing correction into a system that distributes time to the entire body. The effect on any single organ is slight, but the body runs on the agreement of all of them. And agreement, once disturbed at the source, takes time to restore. Core body temperature follows the clock as well. Through the day, your internal temperature rises and falls on a gentle curve, peaking in the late afternoon and reaching its lowest point in the deep hours before dawn. This dip is closely tied to sleep. The body cools as it prepares to rest, and the falling temperature is part of the invitation to sleep at all. Light at night, by delaying the clock, can delay this cooling too. The body, told it is still day, keeps itself a fraction warmer than it would otherwise, and the threshold of sleep drifts further off, harder to reach. The hormone cortisol also rides this rhythm. Cortisol is often described as a stress hormone, but it has a daily pattern that has nothing to do with stress at all. It rises sharply in the hour around waking, helping mobilize the body for the day, then falls across the afternoon and evening to its lowest point near midnight. The master clock governs this curve. When the clock is pushed later by evening light, the cortisol rhythm can shift with it, and the body's natural preparation for sleep, the quiet lowering of its alerting chemistry, arrives at the wrong hour, slightly out of step with the dark. All of this depends on a pathway that is remarkably direct. From the photosensitive cell, to the retinohypothalamic tract, to the master clock, to the pineal gland, and outward to the body. There are few steps between the light at your eye and the hormone in your blood. This directness is why light is such a powerful signal, and why a screen can have an outsized effect for its small size. You are not loosely influenced by light. You are wired to it, plugged in through a cable of nerve fibers that runs from the surface of the eye to the deepest timekeeping center of the brain. And yet the system is forgiving. One late night does not break the clock. The master clock can absorb a single disruption and reset itself within a day or two, pulled back into alignment by the next strong morning light. The body is not fragile in the face of one bright evening. What it struggles with is repetition. The same delayed signal night after night, never given a clear, strong contrast between day and dark. The clock is built to be corrected daily. It only loses its way when the correction never comes. When every day looks a little like night and every night a little like day. This is why morning light may matter more than evening darkness. A strong dose of bright light early in the day anchors the clock firmly to the day, advancing it, sharpening the contrast between waking and rest. People who spend their days in dim indoor light and their evenings in bright artificial glow give the clock a flattened world, with no strong signal of day and no clean signal of night. The screen at midnight is part of this, but only part. The deeper issue is a life lived without a clear dawn, in which the body never receives the one signal it most relies on to know when the day has truly begun. 25 facts in, and the frame has turned almost completely. We began with a story about a dangerous color and a damaged eye. What we have found instead is a clock, ancient and faithful, reading light through a hidden set of cells and using it to set the timing of the entire body. The screen is not a poison. It is a signal, arriving at the wrong hour, in a language the body cannot help but understand. The question that opens the next stretch is this: if light sets the clock, what exactly is the clock? And how does so small a cluster of cells come to govern so much? That is where the next arc begins. Right now, in the quiet, your pineal gland may already be releasing melatonin into your blood. Not because you decided to rest, because the light around you has dimmed, and the messengers in your eyes have grown quiet, and the clock has read the dark and passed the word along. You did not have to do any of it. The system has been running this exact sequence every night of your life, whether you noticed or not. The question that just opened, what this clock truly is, lives in the same small region, now telling your body that night has come. Notice your breath. The signal is already moving. Now we continue. The clock inside each cell is built from genes that regulate one another in a loop. A few of these genes switch on and begin producing proteins. As the proteins accumulate, they fold back and switch the genes off. Then the proteins slowly break down. The genes switch back on, and the cycle starts again. One full turn of this loop takes close to 24 hours. This is the molecular heartbeat of the clock, found not only in the master timekeeper, but in cells throughout the body. Time, at this level, is not measured by anything mechanical. It is measured by the rise and fall of proteins, a chemistry that keeps its own slow rhythm. The discovery of these clock genes was significant enough to earn a Nobel Prize. In 2017, the award in medicine recognized researchers who had uncovered how this molecular loop works, first in fruit flies and later understood across living things. What they revealed was that the clock is not a vague tendency, but a precise mechanism, written into the basic operating instructions of the cell. The same core machinery ticks inside a fly, a mouse, and a human being. The rhythm of day and night is so old and so deeply rooted that life has carried this timekeeping circuitry forward, nearly unchanged, across enormous spans of evolution. Because the loop runs close to, but not exactly, 24 hours, it relies on a daily reset. In most people, the internal clock runs slightly long, closer to 24 hours and a small fraction more. Without correction, each day would begin a little later, and within weeks a person's sense of time would drift entirely out of step with the world. Light is the correction, the strong signal of morning brightness. Read through the photosensitive cells, advances the clock just enough to cancel the drift. This daily reset is so routine you never feel it. Yet without it, the steady agreement between your body and the turning planet would slowly come apart. The strength of light's effect on the clock can be measured, and the numbers are revealing. Bright outdoor daylight can carry tens of thousands of units of brightness to the eye. A typical lit room indoors carries only a few hundred. A screen, held close, carries less still. By the clock's accounting, indoor evening light is far dimmer than the day, but far brighter than true night ever was for most of human history. The body evolved under a sky that went genuinely dark after sunset. The modern evening, lit by lamps and screens, is a kind of perpetual twilight. The clock has no ancient instructions for reading. This is where the popular blue light story begins to fracture. If the clock responds mainly to overall short wavelength light, then the color of a screen is only part of the picture. Studies that carefully control for brightness have found that intensity often predicts melatonin suppression more reliably than color alone. A very bright, warm light can suppress melatonin substantially, while a dim, cool light may barely register. The advice to simply switch a screen to a warmer tone while leaving its brightness high and its hour late may offer less protection than the comforting glow of the word night mode suggests. The behavior around the screen may matter as much as the light from it. Reading something, absorbing, answering a message that stirs worry, scrolling through an endless feed designed to hold attention. All of these raise alertness through the mind, not only through the eye. The arousal of an engaged brain can delay sleep independently of melatonin. A person who reads a calming passage on a bright screen and a person who argues by message on a dim one are not running the same experiment. The light is one input. The state of the mind behind the eyes is another, and the two are often tangled together. Some of the most provocative evidence has come from studies in mice, which deserve careful reading. In one widely discussed line of research, investigators reported that under certain conditions, bluer light appeared less disruptive to the animal's clocks than yellower light of equal brightness. The opposite of the simple expectation. These were animal studies, and the way a mouse's clock weighs color may not match a human's. The finding does not overturn the human research, but it does unsettle the neat story. It suggests that the relationship between color and the clock is more complicated than a single villainous wavelength, and that confidence outrunning the evidence is its own kind of error. In humans, the evidence that blue light blocking glasses improve sleep is surprisingly thin. A large review of the available trials published by the Cochrane Organization, which specializes in weighing medical evidence, concluded that there was little reliable support for the idea that such glasses meaningfully help sleep or eye comfort for the general population. This does not mean light at night has no effect. It means the specific, heavily marketed solution may not do what its sellers imply. The clock responds to far more than the narrow band those lenses filter, and a single accessory cannot undo the influence of a brightly lit evening. What does appear to help is changing the timing and intensity of light, not merely its color. Dimming the lights in the hours before sleep, reducing screen brightness substantially, and giving the body a genuine contrast between a bright day and a dark night all align with how the clock actually works. These measures address the quantity and timing of light, the variables the photosensitive cells truly track. The science points away from gadgets and toward a simpler, older idea. The body wants a clear difference between day and night, and the most reliable way to give it one is to let the evening grow genuinely dark. The photosensitive cells themselves come in several subtypes, each wired to different destinations in the brain. Some report mainly to the master clock. Others influence mood-related regions, or the centers that govern alertness, or the reflexes of the pupil. This means light does not do only one thing when it enters the eye at night. It can shift the clock, sharpen wakefulness, and subtly affect mood, all through different branches of the same hidden system. The single-word screen hides a fan of effects, spreading out across the brain from one small population of cells that never form an image of anything at all. Light can affect alertness directly, even apart from the clock. Exposure to bright light, especially short wavelength light, can increase activity in brain regions associated with attention and arousal. This is part of why a bright screen late at night can leave you feeling wired rather than drowsy. Beyond any effect on melatonin, the light is, in a sense, a stimulant delivered through the eye. By day, this is useful, helping sustain focus through the working hours. By night, it works against you, propping up an alertness the body was trying to let go of, holding the mind a step away from the edge of sleep. The evidence, taken together, points to a layered picture rather than a single cause. Evening light suppresses melatonin to some degree. It can delay the master clock. It can raise alertness directly. And the activities we do on lit screens can engage the mind in ways that delay sleep entirely on their own. No single one of these is the whole story, and focusing on only the color of the light captures the smallest piece. The disruption is real, but it is distributed, arriving through several pathways at once, which is exactly why a single, simple fix so rarely delivers what it promises. Individual differences are large. Some people are far more sensitive to evening light than others, suppressing melatonin strongly in response to levels that barely affect their neighbors. The reasons are partly genetic and partly shaped by recent light history. Someone who spends their days in bright sunlight may be less sensitive to a dim evening screen than someone who has spent all day indoors. This variability is one reason blanket advice fails so often. The same lamp, the same screen, the same hour can land very differently in two different bodies, because each clock has been calibrated by a different recent past. Age changes the system too. As people grow older, the lens of the eye gradually yellows, filtering out more short-wavelength light before it ever reaches the photosensitive cells. An older eye may deliver a weaker timekeeping signal to the clock than a younger one, even in the same room. At the same time, the master clock itself can grow less robust with age, its rhythms flattening. This is part of why sleep often changes across a lifetime. The hardware that reads light and the clock that interprets it both shift slowly, so that the relationship between light and rest is never quite the same from one decade to the next. 40 facts in, and the evidence has reshaped the question. The popular story named a single culprit, a collar, and a single fix, a filter. What the research shows is a system with many doors, sensitive to brightness, duration, timing, and the state of the mind, varying from person to person and across a life. If the disruption is this distributed, then the solution cannot be a single product. It is instead a return to something the body already knows how to read. A day that is clearly bright and a night that is genuinely dark. The next question is what that clock is actually protecting, and why timing matters so deeply at all. You're resting in the dark now, and the light that argued for the day has gone quiet. There is nothing here to follow, nothing to solve. Let the next facts arrive the way light arrives, without your effort. We'll keep going slowly. If light sets a clock that governs the whole body, then the clock is doing far more than scheduling sleep. It is coordinating timing across every system, deciding when hormones rise, when the body warms and cools, when digestion runs most efficiently. Sleep is only the most visible expression of a rhythm that touches everything. This reframes the screen at night. It is not interfering with a single function called sleep. It is sending a timing signal into a coordinator that the entire body depends upon. The way a single wrong note matters less for itself than for the way it pulls the whole piece briefly out of time. The timing of meals interacts with this system in ways researchers are still mapping. The peripheral clocks in organs like the liver respond not only to the master clock, but to food, which acts as its own timing cue. Eating late at night can push these organ clocks in one direction, while light pushes the master clock in another, leaving the body's many timekeepers slightly disagreed. The picture emerging from this research is of a body that wants its signals aligned. Light, food, activity, and rest all pointing the same way. The modern evening, with its late light and late meals, scatters those signals across the hours. Even mood appears woven into this timing. Some of the photosensitive cells connect to brain regions involved in emotional regulation, and disruptions of the clock have been linked, in careful studies, to changes in mood and well-being. The connection is complex and far from fully understood, and it would be wrong to draw simple conclusions from it. But it hints at something the body seems to treat as fundamental. Knowing what time it is, deep in the tissues, may be tied not only to physical health, but to the steadiness of how we feel. Light, in this view, is not only about waking. It touches the texture of being awake. The reach of the clock raises a quiet implication about modern life itself. For nearly all of human history, the contrast between day and night was absolute. The sun was the only significant source of light. And when it set, darkness followed, deep and unbroken. The clock evolved inside that certainty. Artificial light, and especially the bright handheld light of recent decades, is an extraordinarily new thing, present for the merest sliver of the time the clock has existed. We are running ancient timekeeping machinery in a world that no longer offers the clean signal it was built to read. This does not mean light at night is uniquely modern in kind, only in degree. People have gathered around fires for hundreds of thousands of years, and firelight is warm and dim. The body could tolerate it because it was faint and red, carrying little of the short wavelength signal the clock attends to most. What has changed is not that we light the night, but how brightly, how blue-tinged, and how late. The screen is not the first light after dark. It is the brightest, closest, most engaging light after dark, held to the face at the very hour the body had reserved for the deepest quiet. Consider the implication for travel across time zones. When you fly far enough, the clock in your body and the clock on the wall fall out of agreement, and the disorientation that follows, the heaviness, the wrong hour, hunger, the broken sleep, is the felt experience of a clock being dragged to a new time. Light is what eventually realigns it. Morning light at the destination. Read through the same photosensitive cells. Advances or delays the clock day by day until it matches the new sky. The same machinery that a screen can nudge by minutes is the machinery that, given strong light, can be moved across hours. Shift work reveals the cost of fighting the clock continuously. People who work through the night and sleep through the day are asking the master clock to invert its relationship with light, and the clock resists. Even after years, many shift workers never fully adapt, because their days off and their exposure to daylight keep pulling the clock back toward its natural alignment. The body, it turns out, is deeply committed to the timing it inherited. It can be nudged, delayed, and confused, but it returns, again and again, to the rhythm written into its cells. The rhythm first set by the rising and setting of the sun. All of this suggests that the screen at night is best understood not as an attack, but as a misunderstanding between two systems. The screen is doing what screens do, emitting light. The body is doing what bodies do, reading light as a clock signal. Neither is malfunctioning. The problem is only that the screen's light arrives at an hour the body has always reserved for dark, and the body, having no way to know the difference between a true dawn and a false one, responds with the same ancient sincerity. The disruption lives in the meeting of an old body and a new light. If the issue is timing rather than poison, then the remedies follow naturally and gently. Let the day be bright, ideally with real outdoor light, to anchor the clock firmly. Let the evening dim, gradually, so the body receives a clear signal that night is approaching. Reduce the brightness and the lateness of screens, more than fussing over their color, and protect the contrast between the two, so the clock always has a strong difference to read. None of this requires a product. It requires only giving the body back the kind of day and night it was built to understand. 50 facts in, and the question turns again. We have followed light from a single cell to a master clock to the timing of the entire body. And we have seen that the screen is not a toxin, but a signal misplaced in the night. Here is the tension the second half of tonight will follow. If the clock is so faithful, so committed to its inherited rhythm, then why does it bend to artificial light at all? Why has a system this ancient and this central remained open to being misled by a small, bright rectangle? The answer lies in what light has meant to life from the very beginning. That is the question the second half follows. The tension that just opened. Why a clock so faithful would still bend to a false light is not only a question about biology. You may be carrying a version of it right now. Perhaps you have known, on some nights, that the light in your hand was keeping you awake and still found it hard to set down. That is not a failure in you. It is an old body meeting a new light, responding exactly as it was built to. The clock in you does not judge the light. It only reads it. Notice your breath. Notice that it keeps moving, slow and unhurried, even while the question stays open. Now we continue. Life learned to read light long before it had eyes. The earliest organisms on Earth lived under a sun that rose and set with perfect regularity, and the molecules inside them began to anticipate that cycle. Even single-celled life forms developed rhythms tuned to the day, switching certain processes on by light and others off by dark. The clock, in its deepest origin, is not a feature of brains. It is a feature of life itself, a response to the most dependable fact the planet ever offered, that the sun would return. The eye came much later. The reading of light came first. This is why the clock bends to artificial light. It evolved in a world where light meant one thing only, the sun, and where there was no such thing as a false dawn. For billions of years, bright light at the eye was always, reliably, the day. The clock never needed to learn skepticism, because nothing in nature could counterfeit the sun. The body's openness to being misled by a screen is not a flaw. It is the trace of a long history in which light could always be trusted. A trust so deep it was built into the cells, and so old it never imagined a lie. The master clock, then, is less a ruler than an interpreter. It does not generate time so much as translate the planet's light into the body's rhythm. Each day, it listens to the sun through the eye and updates its sense of the hour, passing that sense outward to every organ. In darkness, it keeps time on its own, but it always prefers to be corrected, always leans toward the light for confirmation. This is the relationship at the center of tonight. The clock and the sun, a conversation conducted in photons, carried on without pause across the whole of a life and the whole of evolutionary time. When that conversation is clear, the body settles into a kind of order it cannot achieve any other way. Sleep comes at a consistent hour. Hormones rise and fall on schedule, and the many peripheral clocks stay in agreement with one another. This internal harmony is quiet and almost invisible, noticed mainly by its absence. We rarely feel the clock working well. We feel it only when it falters, when sleep arrives at the wrong hour, when the body feels out of step. The reward of a clear light signal is not a sensation. It is the smooth, unremarkable running of a body that knows what time it is. A screen at night, in this light, is a small interruption in an ancient conversation. It speaks the word day into the ear of a clock that was settling toward night. The clock, faithful and literal, takes the word seriously and adjusts, just slightly, its sense of the hour. The effect is not sudden. It is a few minutes of delayed melatonin, a small push to the timing of the day, but repeated nightly. The interruption becomes a kind of static in the signal, a steady murmur of false day that makes it harder for the body to hear the true contrast between light and dark. The remedy, understood this way, is simply to restore the clarity of the conversation, to let the body hear a loud, unambiguous day and a quiet, unambiguous night. This is why stepping into morning sunlight can do more for sleep than any evening filter, because it strengthens the day side of the contrast, anchoring the clock with the signal it most trusts. And it is why letting the evening grow genuinely dim sharpens the night side. The clock is not asking for protection from a color. It is asking for a clear difference between the two halves of the day it was built to read. There is a softness in recognizing that the body is not under attack. The screen is not damaging you in the way the word myth was meant to imply. The eye is not being scarred. The clock is not being broken. What is happening is gentler and more understandable. An old timekeeper hearing a new kind of light and responding as it always has. This recognition does not make the disruption vanish, but it changes how it feels. You are not fighting a poison. You are tending a conversation between your body and the light, one that can be made clearer with small, patient adjustments. The clock's influence extends even into the timing of healing and repair. Many of the body's restorative processes are scheduled to the night, timed to the hours of darkness and rest. Cells divide and renew on rhythms tied to the clock. When the clock's sense of night is delayed, the timing of these processes can shift with it. This is part of why consistent, timed sleep seems to matter so much for health, beyond the simple need for rest. It is not only how long you sleep, but whether the body's nightly schedule of repair lines up with the actual dark, the way it was always meant to. The same photosensitive cells that can mislead the clock at night are the ones that keep it accurate by day. There is no separate harmful system to be removed. The cells that respond to a screen at midnight are the cells that respond to sunrise, drawing the body into the day. The light at night is not a different mechanism than the light of morning. It is the same gift, the same channel, used at the wrong hour. This is why the answer is never to block light entirely, but to honor its timing, welcoming it strongly by day and releasing it gently as night comes on. Understanding this changes the feeling of an evening. The dimming of the lights is not deprivation, but signal, a kindness to the clock, a way of telling the body honestly that night has come. There is something restful in cooperating with a system this old rather than fighting it. To lower the lights, to set the bright screen aside, is not a sacrifice imposed from outside. It is a small act of agreement with a rhythm that has been part of life since before life had eyes. A way of letting the conversation between body and light come to its natural, quiet, close. The body keeps the clock even when you do not cooperate. On the worst nights, with the brightest screens and the latest hours, the master clock does not abandon its rhythm. It bends, it delays, it grows confused, but it does not stop. The molecular loop keeps turning inside its 20,000 neurons, keeping the most stubborn kind of time, waiting for the strong morning light that will pull it back into alignment. There is reassurance in this. The clock is not easily destroyed. It is built to be disturbed and to recover, to survive the occasional false dawn and find its way back to the true one. This resilience is why a single change can ripple outward so quickly. People who begin seeking bright morning light and dimming their evenings often find their sleep shifting within days. Not because they have repaired something broken, but because they have given a healthy clock the clear signal it was waiting for. The system was never far from working well. It only needed the contrast restored. The speed of the change is itself evidence of the body's underlying soundness. A clock eager to align, held back only by a flattened light environment, and quick to recover the moment the world grows, clearly bright and clearly dark again. Notice how the whole picture has quietly inverted. The screen began as the villain of the story, the source of harm. By now, it has become something smaller and more forgivable. A light that simply arrives too late, speaking truthfully in a language the body trusts. The power in the story was never really in the screen. It was always in the clock, in its faithfulness, in its readiness to read whatever light it is given. To understand sleep and light is to shift attention away from the device and toward the ancient, patient timekeeper that has been listening all along. And the clock listens whether or not you are aware of it. You do not have to know about melanopsin or the suprachiasmatic nucleus for them to do their work. They have been keeping your time since before you could form a memory, reading every dawn and every dusk of your life, adjusting silently, asking nothing of you. The knowledge we have gathered tonight does not create the system. It only reveals what was always running beneath. The body kept its time long before science named the cells. And it will keep that time long after tonight, with or without your attention. The pattern across these 65 facts is becoming clear, and it is not really about screens at all. It is about a body so deeply tuned to light that it reads it as time itself, through cells that do not see, into a clock that governs everything. The big idea is almost visible now. The eye is not only an instrument of vision, it is a sensor for the sun, a doorway through which the planet's light reaches in and sets the rhythm of a living thing. The screen matters only because the eye matters this much. The final stretch carries that idea into the open. Think of how strange and beautiful this arrangement is. The same organ that lets you read these words, recognize a face, watch the rain, is also quietly reporting the brightness of your world to a clock you will never feel. Vision and timekeeping share the same window. The light that builds your images is also the light that sets your hours. Every time you open your eyes to the morning, two things happen at once. You see the day, and your body learns that the day has come. The seeing is the part you notice. The timekeeping is the part that runs your life. This dual role means light is never neutral. By day, It is sustenance for the clock, the signal that keeps you anchored to the world. By night, the same light becomes a question the body answers, a small false claim about the hour. The screen does not change what light is. It only changes when the light arrives. And the body, unable to tell a screen from a sunrise, responds to both with the same ancient sincerity, the same readiness to believe that light means day, because for nearly all of its history, that is exactly what light has meant. There is a kind of peace in letting the body do what it knows. You do not have to manufacture sleep. You do not have to force the clock or fight the light through sheer effort. The system is already built, already running, already inclined toward rest when the dark arrives. What it asks of you is small, only that you let the evening grow dim, that you give it a clear night to read. The rest happens on its own, the melatonin rising, the temperature falling, the alertness releasing, all of it unfolding without your supervision, exactly as it always has. The clock does not measure your worth or your effort. It does not reward a productive day with easier sleep or punish a wasted one with insomnia. It only reads light. This is a kind of mercy, hidden in the mechanism. The body's invitation to rest is not earned. It is offered freely each night to anyone who lets the darkness come, the tired and the restless alike. The falling of melatonin asks no questions about how the day was spent. It responds only to the dimming of the light. And in that response, there is something close to grace. Across the night, the clock continues its quiet governance. While you sleep, it orchestrates the architecture of rest itself, the cycling between lighter and deeper stages, the careful timing of the night's restorative work. The clock does not switch off when sleep arrives. It conducts the night the way it conducted the day, on the same molecular rhythm, the same turning loop of genes. Your sleep is not a blank pause. It is a structured passage, shaped hour by hour by the same timekeeper that read the morning light, carrying you through the dark with the same faithful precision it brings to everything else. When morning comes, the conversation begins again. The first strong light of day, read through the photosensitive cells, advances the clock, cancels the night's drift, and announces that the day has returned. Cortisol rises to meet it. Body temperature begins its climb, and the body lifts itself back toward waking. This daily reset is the heartbeat of the whole system. The moment the clock is corrected and the rhythm renewed. However, the night went. The morning offers the clock its strongest signal, its clearest chance to find true time again. And the body, given that light, takes it gratefully. This is why morning light is the gentlest and most powerful intervention of all. Not a filter, not a device, not a supplement, but simply stepping into the brightness of the early day. It strengthens the day side of the contrast the clock most needs, advancing the rhythm, sharpening the difference between waking and rest. A few minutes of real morning light can do more to steady sleep than hours of worry about the evening's screens. The clock is asking for one thing above all: a clear, strong dawn. And the dawn is the one signal that has never stopped being freely available. The body's relationship with light is, in the end, a relationship with the planet itself. The clock ties you to the rotation of the Earth, to the turning that brings the sun and takes it away. To live by the clock is to live in step with the world's own rhythm, the same rhythm followed by every living thing that ever opened toward the light. The screen, the lamp, the lit evening are recent improvisations on a far older theme. Beneath them, the body still keeps the planet's time, still turns toward the dawn, still releases the dark, faithful to a rhythm older than thought. Knowing this, the late-night light loses some of its menace. It is no longer a poison to be feared, but a signal to be understood. One input among many into a system that is sound and forgiving. You can set the screen aside, not out of dread, but out of kindness. A small cooperation with the clock that has carried you through every night of your life. The fear that the popular story sells, of damage, of harm, gives way to something steadier, a quiet understanding of how the body reads light, and a gentle willingness to give it the night it knows how to use. 75 facts in The Big Idea stands fully in the open. The human eye is not only an instrument of sight, it is a sensor for the sun, a doorway through which the planet's light reaches into the body and sets the timing of nearly everything, through hidden cells, into an ancient clock, with a faithfulness inherited from the very origin of life. The screen at night matters only because this connection runs so deep. The remaining facts carry a different quality now. They are not new mechanisms, but the felt meaning of what has already been shown. The same truth, settling from the mind into the body. Right now, somewhere beyond this room, the Earth is turning, carrying you slowly away from the light and into the dark, the way it has every night of your life. You do not feel the motion. You never have. But your body feels it, in the falling of melatonin, in the cooling of your skin, in the quiet release of the day's alertness. The clock is reading the turning, even now, and passing the word along. You do not need to do anything. The cycle is doing its work, the same work it has done since before there were eyes to see it. The facts that remain do not need to be understood. They only need to arrive where you are already going. We're almost there. The light you see by day is the same light that sets your clock. There is no separate sense, no hidden organ. The morning that fills your eyes also fills the clock, telling it the day has come. To open your eyes to the dawn is to set your body to the world. It is the simplest exchange in nature. Light for time, repeated every morning of every life. The screen is only a small light in a large story. It glows for an hour and is set aside, while the clock keeps a rhythm measured in billions of years. Held against that span, the late-night light is a brief murmur, easily forgiven, easily corrected by the next true dawn. The body has weathered far stranger nights and always found its way back to the morning. Melatonin does not force you to sleep. It only announces that night has come, a soft chemical word spreading through the blood. The sleep that follows is an answer to that word, an agreement rather than a command. When you let the dark arrive, you are not being put to sleep. You are accepting an invitation the body has offered every night since you were born. The clock keeps its time, whether you watch it or not. It needs no instruction, no effort, no attention from you. It has been counting your days since before your first memory, reading every dawn, releasing every dusk. And it will go on counting them long after tonight. Tonight it is doing the same, quietly, beneath the level of awareness, asking nothing except that you let the darkness in. Your eyes have measured the light of thousands of mornings. Each one set the clock a little more firmly, anchored the body a little more deeply to the turning of the world. The light at night is only the rarest fraction of all the light your eyes have read. The overwhelming weight of your life has been lived in true days and true nights, and the body remembers them all. The same falling that takes melatonin's breakaway is taking the day's tension with it. As the clock reads the dark, it loosens the alertness it held through the hours of light. You do not have to release the day yourself. The system releases it for you, gently, on a schedule older than any worry, drawing you down toward the rest that waits at the bottom of the night. Deep in the brain, the master clock sits just above where the light comes in, as close to the dawn as it can be. It was placed there to listen, and it has never stopped listening. Right now it hears the dimness of this room, the quiet of the late hour, and it is passing that quiet outward into a body that is learning. Again, that night has finally come. The cooling of your body is part of the invitation. As the clock reads the dark, your core temperature begins its slow descent toward the low point of the night, and the falling warmth is itself a signal to sleep. You may feel it as a settling, a heaviness, a softening at the edges. That is the body lowering itself toward rest, exactly as it was built to do. There was never a poison in the light. The story of damage, of harm, was only ever a misunderstanding of how the body reads the world. What the screen does is small and forgivable. A word spoken at the wrong hour to a clock that trusts all light. There is nothing to fear in the glow. There is only timing, and timing can always be set gently right. The clock does not ask how your day was spent. It offers the same invitation to rest whether the day was full or empty, easy or hard. The melatonin rises for the weary and the restless alike, asking no questions, keeping no account. The dark comes for everyone, and with it the same quiet permission to let go, freely given, every single night. Light has meant day since before life had eyes. The trust your body places in light is older than sight, older than thought, written into the cells when the first living things turn toward the first sun. To rest now is to follow a rhythm that predates everything you are, a current that has carried life through every night since the beginning, faithful and unbroken. You are tuned to the planets turning more deeply than you know. The clock ties you to the rotation of the earth, to the coming and going of the light, so that to sleep at night is to move in step with the world itself. You are not resting alone. You are turning with the planet into the dark, as everything alive has always turned. The morning will reset whatever the night unsettles. However late the light, however bright the screen, the strong signal of dawn will pull the clock back into true time. The body is built to be disturbed and to recover, to survive the false dawn and find the real one. There is nothing here that the next morning cannot gently set right. The dimming of the room is a kindness you can offer the clock. Not a sacrifice. Not a deprivation. But a small honesty. A way of telling the body truthfully that night has come. As the light lowers, the system relaxes into its oldest work. The rising hormone, the falling warmth, the releasing of the day, all of it unfolding because the dark was finally allowed in. The repair was always happening, on the body's own schedule, in the hours of dark. Not because you earned it, but because you let the night arrive. The clock has been timing your rest and your renewal since long before you understood any of it, asking only for a clear night to do its work. That is the only instruction the system ever needed. Your body knows what time it is more surely than your mind ever could. Beneath thought, beneath effort, the clock keeps its faithful count, reading the light, releasing the dark, governing the rhythm of everything. You can trust it now. It does not need your supervision to carry you into the night. It only needs you to stop and let it. The light in your hand is going dark, and the room is going dark with it. The messengers in your eyes are growing quiet, and the clock is reading that quiet. And the word is moving outward through your body, soft and certain. Night has come. The system has heard it. There is nothing left for you to do but rest. Every cell in you keeps a kind of time, all of them held together by the clock above the eyes. As the dark settles, they fall into agreement, the whole body turning toward the same hour at once. This is the harmony you cannot feel directly, the quiet alignment of a body that knows, in all its parts, that the night has truly arrived. The conversation between your body and the light is coming to its nightly close. The day has been read, the dark has been heard, and the clock is releasing you into the hours it has always reserved for rest. Tomorrow the conversation will begin again with the dawn. But tonight, the only word left is the dark, and the body is answering it. You do not have to reach for sleep. It comes the way the night comes, on its own time, drawn down by the falling hormone and the cooling skin and the loosening of the day. The clock is lowering you toward it gently, the way it has lowered you every night of your life. Let it. The descent is already underway. The same eyes that read every morning are closing now on the night. They have done their work, measured the light, set the clock, carried the day's last brightness inward. Now they can rest. The timekeeping continues without them, deep in the brain, faithful in the dark, asking nothing more of the eyes that have given it a lifetime of light. Far beneath awareness, the clock is doing what it has always done, turning its slow molecular loop, keeping the planet's time inside your body. It will keep that time through the whole of the night, conducting your rest, holding your rhythm, waiting for the dawn. You can let go of everything else. The one thing that keeps time is keeping it, and it does not need you awake. The dark is not empty. It is full of the body's quiet work, the rising hormone, the cooling warmth, the scheduled renewal of cells, all of it timed to the night by the clock above the eyes. You are not falling into nothing. You are entering the part of the cycle the body most needs. The part it has always known how to use. The part that asks only for the dark. Whatever the screens, whatever the late hours, the body forgives them by morning. The clock bends and recovers, disturbed and faithful, built across eons to find the true dawn again. There is no harm here that the turning of one more day cannot gently undo. You can rest without fear, held by a system more forgiving than the story ever admitted. The answer was never about the light from a screen. It was about how deeply you belong to the light of the world, tuned to the sun through cells that do not see, carried by a clock older than thought into the dark and back to the dawn. You are not separate from the turning planet. You are part of its rhythm. And tonight, gently, you are turning with it into the night. The body was reading light as time long before anyone named the cells that do it. Hidden detectors at the back of the eye, reporting brightness to a clock no larger than an almond, setting the rhythm of hormones, temperature, and rest. All of it running beneath awareness. All of it inherited from the first life that ever turned toward the sun. The screen was never a poison. It was only a light arriving late, speaking the one word the body has always trusted. What looked like harm was a conversation, and the clock, faithful as ever, was simply listening the way it always has. What you carry from tonight is not a warning about a color, but the recognition that you belong to the light of the world more deeply than you knew, kept in time by a clock that has been listening all along. Perhaps tonight, setting the bright light aside felt less like a rule and more like a kindness to the clock that carries you. A gentle like, subscribe, or share helps these quiet facts find the others who lie awake with a glowing screen and a restless mind, still searching for the way down into rest. One quiet tap, one sleepy soul at a time. Right now, the brake on your melatonin is lifting, and the hormone is rising into your blood, the way it has every night of your life. Not because you asked it to, because the light has dimmed, and the messengers in your eyes have grown quiet, and the clock has read the dark. The same signal that has set your time since before your first memory is moving through you now, soft and certain, asking nothing. Let your entire being dissolve into that rhythm. The turning of the planet, the falling of the light, the body settling into the night it has always known how to use. You don't need to direct it. It already knows the way down. You can let these thoughts grow dim now, the way a screen fades when it is finally set aside, no longer needing to hold its light. Let your body grow still with the work that is already underway. The hormone rising, the warmth falling, the day quietly releasing its hold. Sleep carries you into the part of the cycle that needs no instruction from you, the part the body has always known how to keep. The deep sleep guided by Mind Science playlist has been moving slowly through the hidden machinery of rest. The next video carries this further. That video is waiting whenever you are ready. But if your eyes are closed, stay there. Rest well, quiet one. The clock that has kept your time through every night of your life is keeping it still, where science becomes the softest place to rest. Good night.